my thing is like, if you leave Jews alone, we're just going to like invent new like medical innovations and like make everybody's lives better for the most part. And like, just like leave us alone, we'll be fine. And in times of societal decay and strife and stress, anti-Semitism is a symptom of those things throughout history.
Hey everybody, welcome to Delusional. It's your host, Michelle, and I am here with my dear, dear friend, Albert Eisenberg. Please introduce yourself, Albert.
Hi, Michelle. My name's Albert Eisenberg, and I am the gay Jewish white dude that helps Republicans talk to Hispanic voters.
I think you're like the most delusional person I know. I think I say that's on the show, but like you are a very specific type of delusional, and I love you so much. And you were one of my first ever Republican clients. So fun fact for anyone listening, I don't know if y'all know, but I've spent most of my career business coaching political consultants. And for 8 of the last 10 years, I was doing that solely on the left. And then I had a shift in values. Not that I've shifted away from the left. My values are still aligned with the progressive left. But in terms of if someone comes to me for help, who am I to say no because you believe this or you do that or you do that? Like, I'm not going to help you if I love that person. And so, Albert, you walked up to me at a conference a couple of years ago and you were like, hey, liked what you had to say. We should talk. And I talked to you for about 35 seconds before I fell in love with you completely and was like, I fucking love this dude. This dude is awesome because of what you were telling me you were working on. So tell us a little bit about like, how did you get into this? I know, by the way, that your Republican beliefs are not particularly popular with your family and friends either. So like, how did you how'd you even get to become a Republican, Albert? Most people like you are not Republican.
Yeah. Well, the fun part about working with you, Michelle, is that you peel back the layers. So it's like, do we start with my genome? Like, I kind of think some people are just hardwired to be more contrarian. And maybe if I had grown up in a super red area, I'd be more liberal. But I just kind of, there's family stuff, family history, reasons that I kind of view the world in a certain way. So just as like my story, was born in Philly and grew up partly in the city and partly outside of it. My parents were prosecutors, so they basically foregoed very high paying jobs in the private sector to be public servants and put bad guys behind bars. So I think I had a certain disposition on law enforcement issues, especially that like the needs of victims and the existence of victims is like often comfortably written out of sort of mainstream left discourse. And these are the kids that I grew up with. And I call them the defund the police kids because they were like proto woke. They were all like super well educated, rich, upper middle class. Parents were all together. My parents were divorced. They didn't have any financial issues. I kind of had to work from a certain age. And then they ended up being the super woke kids with their parents' credit card who said things like defund the police, which like really is horrible if you need the police. So I had some awareness of that before I was a fully formed political individual. Mm-hmm. And then a generation above that, both my dad's parents and my mother's mother were Holocaust survivors. So they went through, all of their parents were murdered by Hitler and the neighbors and, people in Hungary and Poland who were not German, who were the accomplices. So, and they came out of the camps and rebuilt lives, basically from scratch afterwards as people that are far younger than I am. I'm 35. Both my grandmothers were in their early teens when this all was happening and they were sent to Auschwitz. So I had an awareness at a young age that this world of ours is actually very fragile and we shouldn't just play around with slogans to burn it down. So that was kind of my formative thoughts of, somebody growing up with a family lineage with a lot of violence, but also growing up in a very comfortable atmosphere in a sort of decaying political climate of the last 20 years, kind of coming into, post 9/11. I was in 5th grade for that. I'm just coming into my political being and my sort of intellectual being. And then I was always very entrepreneurial. So I was like the kid with the lemonade stand, even though I never really had a lemonade stand, but I had like t-shirt companies and like just different things. I would host keggers at my dad's house when he was out of town and like charge everybody $5, like boys and girls. And I don't know. I was always very entrepreneurial. So
Ladies aren't getting any special treatment with you.
no, and I remember having like fights with women who were very entitled. I'm very against entitlement attitude, who were entitled to walk in. I was like, I'm sorry, girls, like you are giving your $5. You're not doing anything for me besides giving $5 and respecting the house. So anyway, that's a long backdrop, but I ended up kind of stumbling in some ways into political consulting when I was 25, and really that was just doing freelance work. So we can get into that career journey, but hopefully that was a good worldview or foundational, who I am kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and I have questions, and I'm sure, the watchers and listeners do too, because what you're describing initially sounds like what I would consider classically conservative, right? Like we have some good institutions that are worth preserving,
Yeah.
Let's not go crazy, dismantling everything, let's
Yeah.
not go wild. And for a long time, the Republican Party did align with classic conservatism. I would argue it no longer does. And a lot of folks would listen to your story and go, how could you be aligned with a party that is aligned with white supremacy when your grandparents died in the Holocaust? Also, we can get into all kinds of fascinating things about being a Jew in today's political climate and, feeling politically homeless there. But let's start there. How are you still aligned with the Trump MAGA Republican Party?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it was such an interesting time. So I worked in the agency world for my first two jobs out of college. I graduated in 2013. And then I got fired from my second job out of college, basically for being a little asshole. And I was like, I want to start my own thing. I would like to not get fired. So that was the impetus. I mean, you talk to entrepreneurs all day long. Everyone gives a different reason. At 25, I was like, I like campaigns and causes. And like, I'd like to not get fired again. So moved back to my home city of Philadelphia and started kind of building this political roster clientele. But it was doing whatever came my way as an entree. I mean, I never worked on the Hill. I had never worked on a campaign. So just kind of built, you know what I mean? And that was 2015, 2016. So that was a wild ride of an election season for everybody. And I remember very vividly riding around in Philadelphia, PA with these, kind of white collar or blue collar guys in their pickup trucks from Northeast Philadelphia who were the realignment that was happening. And they were telling me that Trump was going to win. It was election day of 2016. And I was in my head thinking, these guys are such idiots. Everyone knows Hillary's going to win. And then the watch party happened. And it was very obvious that Hillary wasn't going to win. And then Trump won. And like every sort of elitist person, I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. So I'm building my political career in this environment. And I'm looking around and seeing opportunities to talk to voters that are not traditional Republicans, as the traditional Republicans, the Romney Republicans, are moving away from the party in the suburbs, like the ones I grew up with. And then there's all these like working class, white, Hispanic, Black, Asian voters in cities like Philadelphia that nobody's talking to well, that are disengaged from the Democrats. The Democratic Party is becoming more sort of upmarket, more sort of woke as a shorthand, more sort of elitist in their fashionings around social and economic issues. No one's talking to these people. So anyway, that was sort of what I was looking at as far as my opportunities in. And then I think to your actual question, which is which party is preserving our existing norms, we're talking to each other in 2026. Honestly, neither side is doing a very good job of this. We're talking to each other. There's a referendum in Virginia where you live to completely redraw the maps in favor of Democrats. California has gone nuclear. Texas has gone nuclear on the Republican side. Like it's like the Capulets and the Montagues.
Can I say something real quick about that? Just because this will be interesting to you specifically, and hopefully maybe some of the other people who listen to this. I got both pieces of mail yesterday on that election. So we have a special election about whether or not we want to temporarily redraw the lines in Virginia. Right now, the left is yes, the right is no. I am a always voter, right? It's public record that you vote, so they can see that I vote every single time. It is not public record how you vote, but I think that through my political donation history, et cetera, it would be pretty clear that I am.
You should be a yes voter.
I'm generally a straight ticket Democratic voter, and I vote on yes, I vote to spend tax money on building schools and things like that, right? Like it should be pretty clear. But I got both pieces of mail yesterday. I got the vote no and the vote yes. And so when you get we're going to get into some nerd shit, and I'm sorry, y'all. just into the weeds a little bit. We'll try. We have to explain it a little bit, Albert, because not everyone that listens to this is a political consultant. But when I
Yes,
get a piece of mail from the opposing party, so for me that would be like a Republican piece of mail, or in this a vote no piece of mail. It's one of two things. It's either, oh, your targeting is completely way off and you're like wasting all the money,
right.
or you're doing something very sophisticated and very interesting, and you feel like there's some people you can pick off, and you have somehow
Yes,
identified me as maybe somebody that you can pick off. I don't think it was the latter in this case, because I got a piece of mail targeted very clearly to African American voters, and I am very clearly white. So, but
but
I
maybe
was
if
like,
we're
oh,
being charitable to
yeah,
that side, perhaps they think you're a upper middle class white sort of progressive woman, and you might be motivated on racial issues
yeah,
because you feel like you have their fates in your hands, which is really not something I would say about you, Michelle, but something that's very animating for a lot of upper middle class white women
sure.
is
It's not
the
like I
feeling
never
that
went
they're
through my white
helped.
savior years.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
yes, yes, which is always a fun feeling to, voice and feel. You get sort of feel righteous, which is something that is not, that's common across the political spectrum. We're driven by our emotions on this stuff increasingly. I feel like I didn't answer your first question though.
Just how are you still I don't want to say how do you sleep at night, but like
Yeah.
where how are you reconciling, because I know you, like you're a close friend of mine. I know you. I know you're a good person. I know you're a man of integrity. How do you reconcile your integrity with, I'm still supporting this Trump agenda and this MAGA agenda that is also dismantling institutions rapidly and tearing all these things down, and all these
Yeah.
things that you initially were against when you came into the Republican Party?
Well, okay, so I think you have to. So, yeah, so during my journey building my business and being engaged, like I couldn't really afford to be a professional never Trumper. All those people were like prior Republicans who weren't getting hired anymore, and they got like super rich being like the Republican who goes on NBC. Like nobody did better than like Nicole Wallace and Anna Navarro, like being like an outraged former Republican. And it's like so tired at this point in 2026. But like when I was starting my career, there was those people. And then there were like the MAGA gays, which were like the people I was looking at on Twitter who were going online every morning, being like, "Good morning, it's October 2018, and Trump is the best president for gay people ever." And they would like tweet that like every day, and they get like 10,000
Were they
retweets.
bots?
No, those are real people. And I remember being like, starting kind of building my business and being like, wow, these guys are getting so much engagement, and my like nuanced bullshit is getting nothing. And then I remember learning or realizing I was like, these guys must be independently wealthy or just not have any clients. Cause I don't have time to be doing that. Like I'm trying to like work, I don't have time to be like tweeting that all day. And it's also so disreputable to say that. Like you burn through your political capital. You get a bunch of followers and then you burn through your political capital. And I'm old enough now that I've been through enough cycles seeing people on both the left and the right popping up with their outlandish, super aggressively positioned, stances and then getting a bunch of engagement and then burning out. And I would say like my career has been about compounding interest and slow attrition. Just like building, building, building every year, doing a little better, making a few more connections, doing a little better every day at sales, marketing, operations, all the entrepreneurial stuff. Now, as far as the backdrop, we're living in a political culture that is really, really deteriorated. And I actually have faith that we could bounce back and come back together. But like every Democrat is going to say, well, look at Trump, he's dismantling norms. I can come back at you with 3 examples of Democrats dismantling norms. I mean, like we could always do that. And I don't really think that's productive, but like trust that I feel the same way you feel. That's something that's often missing in like left right conversations. And I think especially on the left of like trust that I have an emotional response and have reasons for feeling the way that I feel that are just as valid as yours. And I know you do, but I actually think you're kind of the exception, which is partly why, Michelle, I think you've left the sort of far left, or at least not
Yeah.
necessarily echoing that silo as much.
I left the far left, or if the far left left me, but either way, I am currently positioned more in the middle than I used to be.
Right.
And yes, a big part of what shifted for me was I went and I studied NLP, neurolinguistic programming. One of the tenets of NLP is we
Mm-hmm.
respect everyone's worldview. I came in woke as anybody else and was really confronted by that concept. Like, how could I possibly respect your worldview if you are supporting this other side that wants to do X, Y, and Z that I think is bad and blah, blah, blah. Right. And I mean, I was the person that raised my hand in in a class of 200 people, and I was like, wait a second, what do you mean I got to respect everybody's worldview? And the guy who was teaching the class stopped and he said, it's not that you have to agree with everybody's worldview. That's not what we're saying. We're saying respect it, as in they came from somewhere different than you. They had different life experiences. They have different religion. They have different community. They have different education. They have, just like you formed your beliefs based on your experiences, your education, your community, where you're from, what you
Right.
experience day to day, everything else. And it was like a light bulb went off for me. And I was like, oh my God, the way I've been living, which is just in judgment and anxiety and fear, kind of hateful, kind of just dismissing half the population out of hand, it's not doing anything for me, right? I am not enjoying this. This is not a fun way to walk around. Yeah, you get to feel self-righteous. I mean, that's the fun part, I guess, if there's a fun part. But like, it's really not fun. And I'm hanging out with all these people and all we're doing is spinning each other up about how we're good and somebody else is bad.
Yes.
And it just shifted shit for me. And I came out of that and I was like, I am no longer willing to do that. And you know this, Albert. I don't know if the listeners know, but I lost a lot of my clients when I said, I'm going to go and work with everybody now, because I do respect everybody's worldview. Now, I drew some bright lines in the sand. I said, I'm not going to work with anyone that's doing bigoted appeals. If you're doing stuff that's racist or homophobic or anti-Semitic or whatever to get votes, I'm not working with you. But just because you're a Republican, I'm not going to rule you out anymore. And I lost a huge chunk of my, leftist clients who said, I cannot believe that you would possibly work with Republicans. And I said, I'm not going to work with you if you won't work with me, because I respect somebody's worldview.
Right.
It was a whole deal. And I lost a lot of money and basically started my business from scratch over that. But I'm willing to do that to be in line with my own values, which is I'm going to consider people on a case-by-case basis on an individual level. I am trying to help people with integrity do cool things in the world and live up to their own potential. And you were one of those people. And I saw a lot in what you were trying to do. And partially what I hear you saying is, and I know you can't say it, so maybe I can say it for you, is I am, that you're kind of hanging out. You're still, in line with Republican conservative values, and you're kind of hoping that things come back around at some point to be maybe more in line with you personally.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there. I'm hoping that the country can come together somewhat. I mean, it's America's 250th birthday. Like, one thing that I see on the right that does feel like a preservation of our country is that I think that there's a stronger and more legitimate feeling of, hey, is America's place in the world positive overall or negative? For me, we can't have a civilization that's going to replicate for another 250 years if the overall it's two thumbs down on America. And that type of stuff on the left, that is pervasive. It's hegemonic at this point that you can't say otherwise, or else you're a bigot or you're a racist or you're supported Jim Crow or whatever. And it's so tired. But like, to me, it's not just like boring and tired and annoying from a discourse standpoint. Like, I find that fundamentally dangerous for civilization. So yeah. I think about this stuff very broadly, I think, because of the Holocaust lineage and just like kind of just being that type of like really broad perceptive thinker. And frankly, a lot of my work with you and your team has been like taking the broad perceptive stuff and like actually winnowing it down to like the here and now is a challenge for me. Whereas a lot of people have the opposite problem of they can't zoom out. I have to like zoom in actively every day of like what's in front of me. So I guess one thing that makes me more conservative that I feel very comfortable with is like, I actually think America has been a really great place in the world, though not a perfect place. Mm-hmm. And I think President Trump's second term, he's far better than his first term. I don't love like the MAGA aesthetic. That's not my thing. And I see missed opportunities on my side all the time. But I think the Republican Party today is more of a working person's party than ever before. I think that's shown in the data of 2024 election of under $50,000 voters voting Republican for the first time in our lifetime. So like, I'm comfortable with a lot of aspects of what's going on. And I think overall we have a political climate that's really bad. And I'm not anybody who's here to tell you like, I'm wearing my Republican jersey and everything I do is right and everything you do is wrong is a bad actor at this point. And the same is true on the other side. So I'm definitely comfortable being a Republican. I am, like you, a pretty straight ticket voter at this point. And there's basically no major issue that I trust the Democratic Party on more than the Republican Party, probably with the exception of abortion. Although as a gay man, I don't have unplanned pregnancies, so that's sort of an aside.
That's
But
nice for you.
I like and respect Democrats
Yeah.
that I talk to in my life, and that's really important to me. And when we lose that, like we don't really have a country anymore.
No, I agree with you on so much, and I think this is why we get along, even though we kind of view things fundamentally differently on a policy level. I hear what you're saying. I remember sometime shortly after Trump got elected, within a few years of 2016. I am a corny person, you guys. If y'all know me personally, you know I'm a corny person. Like I like to dress up for holidays. I was born and grew up in Lawton, Oklahoma, where there's not a whole hell of a lot to do. People dress up for holidays. You wear green on St. Patrick's Day or you get pinched, that kind of thing. And so it was 4th of July, and I was dressed up in my 4th of July red, white, and blue gear. And I was going to a friend's house in DC up in upper Northwest. And I was getting glared at because at that time, wearing red, white, and blue had got associated with you're a Republican or you're a Trumper or whatever. And I was like, guys, it's my flag too. It's our flag too. Like when we start to cede the flag, now we're having a whole different conversation.
Yeah. And let me just say, because I want to hear more about that, to the majority of your listenership, who I think are probably left-leaning if they're anywhere, if you've given up the American flag, you have lost the plot and you have made a strategic mistake. Yeah. Do not give up the American flag just because there's a Republican in office or this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Like, don't give it up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think there's a segue here too. Let's just open the powder keg, right? Because we're both Jewish. We've had a lot of conversations about this lately. We're seeing so much, and I'll just straight up label it ignorance around conflating Jews with the concept of Israel, with the state of Israel as it exists now, with Netanyahu's government, and like those all being the same thing. Those are not all the same thing. And so when you are allowing your criticism of Netanyahu and that government's actions start to become straight anti-Semitism, I mean, that's so disappointing. And we're seeing it all over the place where, my little son loves to wear his Israeli baseball hat. And I'm like, should I be worried about him wearing a Star of David around town? Like, that sucks. That sucks. And speaking of, seeding something that means something. I don't know. Yeah. What say you on that whole scenario?
It's a scary time in the Jewish community. I mean, I think you also, when I talk to my friends, I'm like, we also need to remember, like, we have strengths as a community and like amazing benefits. Like Jews basically were part of the oldest and most diverse and most, I think, accomplished in a lot of ways, like people that's ever existed. We've managed to survive in the most inhospitable terrains all across the world. And you're not going to kill all of us. We are going to survive as a people. So we will outlast the anti-Semites. We always have. And we've also had to deal with the rise and fall throughout history of these strains of anti-Jewish sentiment. And then, periods of acceptance and flourishing, which happened throughout history from like the Spanish, golden age and like the 1100s to 1300s to America, where Jews have come and thrived and we're 2% of the population. Basically my thing is like, if you leave Jews alone, we're just going to like invent new like medical innovations and like make everybody's lives better for the most part. And like, just like leave us alone, we'll be fine. And in times of societal decay and strife and stress, anti-Semitism is a symptom of those things throughout history. So it makes sense that there's levels of rising anti-Semitism. And right now, the pretense is Israel's response to the Hamas attacks on October 7th, 2023. To me, that's a pretense because there's no other country in the world where everyone gets like a straw poll. Like, okay, we don't like Keir Starmer in the UK. Does the UK have a right to exist? Is the UK a colonial occupying force? Obviously, the UK has done a lot more colonizing than the Jewish people or Israel ever has.
Yes, the UK is a colonial occupying.
Right. But it's like not everyone needs an opinion on its leader. It's like pervasive. And that's anti-Semitic. And like, it's one thing to say like Israel's reaction was disproportionate, which you and I can debate. And people in good faith can debate. But like the idea that you have to focus so immensely on Israel. And then those same people are like silent when Iran kills like 30,000 of its own people, or like silent about like China's human rights atrocities, Russia's human rights atrocities, Belgium's history of colonization, Spanish. Like they're just they're so selective. It's a much more pernicious bias. So anyway, I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I work on this issue quite a bit in America. And it's a tough, and it's in some ways it's tough and complicated, and in some ways it's actually quite simple what's going on.
Yeah, and as much as I'm trying to get away from kind of the sentiments of the, like, I don't want to be the person that says you have to speak about this issue with this precise language or in this particular way. But in this case, there are ways that you can say, hey, I really think they've gone too far, or this government or this leader has gone too far, without saying, Israel shouldn't exist, which are
Right.
two completely different things.
Or globalize the Intifada, which everyone knows means you're allowed to target and rape women or kill babies because there's no non-combatant Israeli. If you see people saying things like that adjacent to that in your news feeds, those people are the ones that are on the wrong side of history that would be fine killing and murdering and targeting civilians.
Yeah.
Wrong. It's wrong.
And I think that a lot of people who are saying those things don't really know what it means. They don't know the history. They haven't taken time to dig into the complex history of relations in the Middle East. Not that we expect everybody to, but like maybe if you're going to come out strong with language like that, at least know what you're saying so you can at least stand behind it or not.
Yeah.
I know that so many Jews that I know personally have been feeling politically homeless these last couple of years because most of the Jews that I know were on the left. I know there's obviously a contingent of Republican Jews like you, but most of my friends that are Jews were on the left. Strong allies for everybody else, like out there marching for Black Lives Matter, out there marching in the Pride parades, out there doing all of it. And then when there was the October 7th attack in 2023, it was not seen by the progressive community as a response to that attack, as a country defending itself. It was seen as something different. Now, we can debate all day long whether that went too far. I believe it did. I don't believe that the initial response was wrong or that Israel didn't have a right to defend itself. And all of that got lost, including all of the horrific terrorist acts that were perpetrated against Jews in the initial attack got completely lost. The fact that there were hundreds of people taken hostage that were held hostage for years got completely lost in that whole debate. And a lot of myself and a lot of my Jewish friends just started to feel like, hey, we were behind all y'all on all this shit. And then, once again, the Jews get hung out to dry on our own when it's something about us. How do you feel about any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I sympathize with that. I feel bad for my Jewish friends on the left who have moved towards the center for the most part, or checked out, or some have gone to the right, which I've seen. And there's definitely issues on the right as well with like the Tucker Carlson contingent just spreading outright lies about like Israel's treatment of Christians. Israel's the only country in the Middle East where the Christian population is growing. It's there's 1 million Muslims that live in Israel. It's a tiny little country. They have a huge Muslim population. There's nowhere where you could be gay in the Middle East besides Tel Aviv. And you could be a gay Muslim. I've actually done work and polling on this. I'm not sure if I've shared with you, Michelle, that when people are informed that Israel is a safe haven for gay and transgender Muslims and Arabs in the region, they become much more favorable towards Israel.
I gotta say, like watching these little gay kids draped in the Palestinian flag and shit is wild to me. It's like, do you not like crack a book? I mean, I'm sorry to be an asshole, but like, wow.
I think that's a fair thing to say. I mean, I think the way that I understand it is those kids hate America. They hate the West. And they view Israel as sort of a projection of this like George Floyd era politics where Israel's the aggressor and the colonist and then Palestinians are bad and they're darker skinned and like therefore, and it's like you could just look at what the population looks like in Israel. It doesn't really look like me and you. There's a lot, they're mostly Arab descent. So anyway, there's a million subtopics within this, but I would just say for listeners, like if you're getting constant content, especially on social media, that's meant to like aggravate you and is consistently pointing against the, existence of one certain type of people, like you are the one being manipulated and you are the product. And you have to ask yourself, who are the people both in the United States and internationally who are pushing these messages towards me? Because it's an industry behind it.
Well, it is. And I think this is something we should talk about explicitly because I think it'll be interesting to viewers and listeners. the whole political consulting industry is built to hijack your emotions. There is a reason why I morally stopped being a political consultant myself and moved into, oh, I need to coach and help you people a little bit. But because it's a tough industry, it chews you up and it spits you out. And the entire industry is designed to hijack emotions. I mean, that's what we're trading on. If we want people to take action, okay, we got to get them angry, we got to get them riled up, we got to get them
Yeah.
anxious, or maybe like 10% of the time we can get them inspired and hopeful like Obama in '08.
Yes.
But most of the time it's like we got to piss them off, get you anxious, get you, or
Rally the base.
yes, rally the base. Or the flip
Yeah.
side, I want people to stay home. I want to suppress the
Yes.
other side. And so I'm going to make them feel like it's hopeless. There's nothing they can do, like this, like I can evoke emotions in the other side so they stay home and they don't vote or whatever. Right. And political messaging, in order to be effective, here's my premise. You tell me if I'm wrong, needs to be simplistic, overly simplistic. I call it meme speak. Right. It's just like, keep it simple, stupid. Like, what is the simplest 3-word phrase that's just hardest hitting, that gets the most emotion that you can say? And we lose all of the nuance and all of the policy debate and all of the complicated factors that we really should be talking about to make good decisions. And instead, we just scuttle all of it for, well, this makes people pissed off, so we're going to use the most simplistic, ridiculous version of this. And both sides do that.
Yeah. I mean, I cut in earlier, I said rally the base, because that's really the operative phrase. It's like, and I find it so boring. And I've missed a lot of business because that's not what I do. I say this a lot, the Republican side especially, because we are more insular and we don't have the broad-based media, legacy media, which tends to skew left. We do a lot of time talking to ourselves. We do a lot of time talking to, is that grammatically correct? You understand what I'm saying? We spend a lot of time talking amongst each other about how bad the other side is and rallying each other up and getting each other angry, and not that much time doing persuasion beyond our base. So my role at Redbridge, which is my firm, I help Republican campaigns build a bridge to their next supporter, people that are not hearing a humane alternative. Often people in cities, often people from diverse racial, ethnic, religious backgrounds, often people who are conducting their lives in Spanish or Korean or Russian, who just are not hearing from the Republican side. So I actually am very blessed because I built a business around appealing and persuading voters that don't already agree with us. And that's actually fun. It's a fun intellectual challenge. You absolutely have to create emotionally resonant messaging, but you can't just go on urban radio with Black voters who vote 95-5 or 90-10 Democrat Republican and go on with an urban spot and be like, Democrats are all evil. That's just going to cause people to clam up and withdraw, and it'll probably drive turnout up for the opposition. So I have a much more interesting challenge, and I cannot tell you how irritating the base messaging is and how useless 99% of it is, but it's so much more lucrative and it requires no vision at all to get paid to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. And, the Republicans did do a good job of this. Like, we got to give credit where credit's due on the strategy end in terms of speaking to different types of voters, especially some of the voters that the Democrats took for granted. It's not like you picked off everybody in those categories, but just enough people to move the needle for sure when you were looking at Black men, Hispanic men, gay folks, et cetera, just enough to move the needle.
Guess what happened after? We immediately stopped delivering and speaking to those voters, and now we see a snapback. And my thing is, the way the industry works, because this is what Michelle was saying earlier, this is an industry. The candidates, the elected officials are the tip of the iceberg. Behind it are the fundraisers, the messaging consultants, the grassroots people, the affiliated C3s and C4s and think tanks. Like, it's all this huge thing. My thing is, we should be focused on the first-time Republican voters, the people that we persuaded for the first time and took that leap. They should have been all we were focused on starting in December of 2024. And instead, both sides, and Biden's team did this too, they focused on their base. They lost the middle. They overinterpreted their mandate. And now we're going to see a snapback.
Yeah. I mean, you're already seeing a snapback. I mean, there were promises made to people, because you're talking about speaking to working class voters again, which, historically, or at least for the last few decades, has been Democratic purview, kind of switched to Republican for the last 10 years. Yeah. And then it's okay, well, I'm going to be the one that cares about your grocery prices and your gas prices. And then, of course, the policy.
And your housing?
The opposite.
Housing prices? Yeah.
we don't know hardly anyone that's actually better off today than they were 4 years ago. Maybe
No.
some people at the very tippy top, right?
And if President Trump was a response, it was a thorough and consistent messenger, which he just isn't. We know this. The message from the beginning, and President Trump was always going to be President Trump, but at least the RNC and our candidates, the message from the very beginning should have been, look, we just spent trillions of dollars in inflationary spending that we didn't have. Regular working people get it. That's why they shifted Republican. We have really hard problems. We just opened the door to 10 to 20 million people who came across the border illegally. And whether those people are good people or bad people, we have very tough problems to solve. And there's going to be pain. But please, we're going to make progress on it. Here's how. And then 2 years later, which is we're coming up on right now, we can say, hey, we made progress in X, Y, and Z way, and we have more to do. And we know it's been tough. That would have been a responsible message that I think would have been a winning message for those voters. And unfortunately, now we're playing catch up.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are going to get murdered in the midterms, right?
Who's to say?
Me.
Yes, if the midterms.
I am saying on the record, and I could be wrong because, Elon's maybe still on your side with his little satellite voting machine. I don't know.
I know, Michelle. I don't think the money's the problem. I mean, we're not going to have money problems this midterms on the Republican side, but I just don't. I think people talk about the money like it decides elections. It's like the message decides elections to me, and the trust.
What is the message right now, and what should the message be on the Republican side?
I think the message should be, look, there's a lot of problems in this country and there's a lot of problems in this world, but we are making the hard decisions that come with temporary pain to make things better internationally and domestically. And we are still focused on the needs of regular working people. Here's what we've already done. Here's what we're planning to do in the next 2 years. And we would really appreciate your trust in us to give us another 2 years in power. That would be the Republican.
That's what you would say, right?
That's what I would say.
What is the message? Because it's not that.
No. I mean, the message varies from day to day. A lot of the time the message is, well, look at the other side. Mom Donnie's the new leader. They're so crazy. And that just doesn't really work when you're in power.
Yeah.
It's just not enough. The primary motivating factor on both sides since both of us have been in politics has been, well, we're not the other side and look how bad they are. And I actually maintain a belief that we could say more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, we absolutely could be saying more. Trump is so fascinating still in that he just continues to burn every bridge except the one with Putin.
That's not necessarily true. That's an interesting perspective.
Well, we'll talk about that in a second. I think it's really interesting that he decided to take on the Pope this week. As of the time of this record, this will come out in a couple of weeks, but on the day we're recording, he just took on the Pope. He put out an image of himself looking very Jesus-like. That a lot of people on the Christian right are pissed off about, which is I didn't know he could do anything to lose them, but finally they were like, ooh, that was inappropriate. He has now lost Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, who else? More Megyn Kelly. They've all kind of Tucker Carlson. He went after all of them this week. It's these are all people that helped you get elected, man.
Yes, he does not build allies, and there's nothing subtle about him. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I can add anything to the discourse about President Trump and his approach, except to say, I think the reason that Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson are not on board with Trump is definitely things that I am on board with. So I'm you can go. It doesn't add to the coalition. But I think that those people are bad actors and have interests that I don't share with them. And I've never trusted any of those people.
So, say more.
Oh, I think all of them are anti-Jewish. I think all of them are, they have their finger in the air. I mean, the amount of time, energy, probably money and credibility that Tucker Carlson has spent discrediting Israel and discrediting himself in so doing based on outright lies is pretty amazing to witness. And it says a lot of negative things about our society and our media culture. If he's not endorsing Trump's actions in Iran, I'm great, then they're good.
Oh, so you're
you go on Tucker Carlson.
Are you pro what's going on in Iran right now?
Yeah, I am.
Okay,
I think Iran has been a global menace for 47 years. They wake up every day and say death to America. People that think that this is somehow going to be better if we sort of sit back and take the last few presidential administrations approaches of just sort of slowly developing a nuclear bomb and also having proxy armies in Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and Iraq. Like their main global export is terrorism. So they've definitely had it coming. I'm completely supportive of it. I think that there should be stronger messaging. And I think people in America need to hear from American victims of Iranian terrorism and that we need to make the case to the American public. I don't blame people for not being supportive of it, but I'm supportive of it.
Well, what do you say to the talking point that this is all just to distract from the Epstein files? I mean, we saw something really interesting happen this week when Melania came out to speak, and we don't see Melania come out to the podium very often. And it was at least it was conveyed in the media that Trump didn't even know that she was doing that. So I mean, like she brought attention.
That I doubt highly.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That was just the kind of the story that played out. I try, and I think you know this about me, Albert, but I'll say for watchers and listeners, I try to read like 5-6 different news sources so I can critically think about what's really going on and not just take one person's biased reporting on it. The consensus was that they weren't sure that Trump knew that she was doing that, and we all know she doesn't talk very often, speak publicly very often. And she brought attention back on the Epstein stuff when everybody has been saying, oh, well, he's doing everything in Iran to distract from Epstein. And maybe we weren't talking about Epstein for a couple of weeks. What do you make of that entire mess?
I think what makes me sad about the Epstein files is that I actually don't think anybody who's speaking about it cares about the victims. I think it's just a political cudgel that both sides have used because Trump, the Democrats were the ones hushing it up and not talking about it before 2024, and Republicans were the ones running on it, saying, why won't you release the files? I mean, Trump ran on this stuff and then it switched. And I just think that the side that's been saying, hush, like, no, don't talk about it, that's now all of a sudden saying release it all. I'm like, I don't trust y'all at all. And it just makes me sad because like a lot of children were exploited and trafficked by this evil man. And you just see, it's like a Rorschach test for American politics. You see whatever you want to see in it. Some people it's a Mossad thing. It's the Democrats, it's the Republicans. They're run by a cabal of pedophiles. And it's like, whoa, like when did it become normal for something to happen and then it immediately raced to the most extreme conspiracy theory? And you saw it after Charlie Kirk was killed also, of like, we're living in this like hothead political environment. So I, unfortunately, like a lot of voters, frankly, have kind of tuned that one out because I'm like, I don't trust that anybody gives a shit about any of these people that were trafficked. I just don't.
Yeah, it's a lot, and we are barraged with like all of the world's news, all of the horrible things that are going on all of the time. I recently did an experiment with my Claude. I've moved from ChatGPT to Claude now.
Yes, you and everyone else.
Yes, and I said, hey, pretend it's like today where we can get all the headlines at once, but just tell me about this day. I think it was like April 10th. I was like, tell me about April 10th in 1826. And in 1726, and give me all the headlines from the day's news. And it's like, it's horrific, right? It's like a horror. And and I did it for like all these different centuries. I got to 1226, Albert, and it was like, oh, you wouldn't even be alive. Because
oh my God, the Magna Carta just got signed.
It was like the average age was 30. Like you'd be dead. Like the 45-year-olds didn't exist.
Yeah. And what was the literacy rate? 2%?
Yeah. It's like you would be picking something in a field until you died at 28 with no teeth or whatever.
Yeah.
And you start to read this and you go, oh, we are actually living in the best time ever to be alive, especially if you're anybody but like a white guy. The very best time ever to be alive in America. Yeah. And we lose sight of that constantly by these forces that are constantly trying to hijack our attention, get us into these moods. So like, I don't blame you for saying, I mean, you're informed about it. You're not saying I'm tuning out like I'm not informed. You're one of the most politically and, current events informed people I know. Right. That's not what Albert is saying for those of you listening. It's just emotionally at some point you have to say, okay, I care. And where do I draw boundaries and the line between allowing other things to hijack my emotions? Yeah. And the huge theme of Delusional is creating our own reality so that we can build what we're here to build, do our mission on Earth, whatever we were put here to do. And so much of that is tuning out Other
Yeah.
people want my time and attention constantly. I was just having a conversation about this with my 20-year-old son yesterday. I was like, the entire world is out to get your attention all the time. At what
Yep.
point do you reclaim it with intention, hold on to your own energy and sovereignty, and like create from there?
Yes. If the platform is free, you are the product.
Yes.
And today we have to basically create an iron fortress for any sense of productivity or being in charge of our own days. And one of the things that I think is a practice that has taken me very far is I don't take my phone into bed with me. I don't look at it first thing in the morning because I have a day that I need to plan myself. I need to be in charge of my day. My Twitter feed doesn't need to be in charge of my day. And this is one of the reasons that I come up to DC a lot as a consultant. I spend about a quarter of my time here. I do not live inside the Beltway because what's going to decide the midterms elections is the average voter, female with some college, middle class, working hard, trying to do what's best for her and her family. Does she think she's better off than she was 2 years ago? And whatever happens with the Epstein files today or the Strait of Hormuz, I'm interested in, but it doesn't affect that person necessarily. It's going to all be part of the sort of perception of the brand of President Trump and the Republican Party and the perception of the brand of the Democratic Party and whoever the candidate is in that race. That's going to be what's deciding. So in the interim, we can all have fun and be super online, but that actually takes us further away from what the average voters are thinking about on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Albert, I could talk to you for hours and days and often do. And this whole thing is making me feel like you and I should start a whole political podcast, but we'll talk about that offline. But we have to be done for today. So tell people where they can find you if they're interested in knowing more about you or your work. Where can they find you on the internet?
Well, thank you, Michelle. And I'm going to do a free and unsponsored plug for Michelle's amazing political coaching and business coaching in general, because she really has helped transform how I view my business and has helped me grow a lot. And so, and helped me rebrand. So my firm is Red Bridge. We're at www.yourredbridge.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, Your Red Bridge. And you can find me on X or Twitter, depending on your political orientation, at Albidelphia, hailing back to my Philadelphia roots. So yeah, it's a pleasure to speak to you. Our team helps campaigns and causes reach their next generation of supporter.
One of the smartest guys I know. Albert, thank you so much for being on the show today. And everybody else, thank you for watching and listening. As always, we will see you next time.
Thanks, Michelle.